What makes my little edgelord heart throb with excitement is a good, edgy character. What makes it quiver is when that character is also completely off his nut. Enter my favourite character of all time, Warhammer 40k's Cypher, Lord of the Fallen, the Bearer of the Blade, Dark Angel's Public Enemy #1, a whole lot of other titles, but this ain't Game of Thrones. We're not going to sit here and list all of his accolades. We'll be here all bloody day. Hello and welcome to the Uplifting Primer. Let's get locked in. This absolute unit has been name dropped in 3 separate codices. Codexes, whatever. First, he's mentioned in every, he's mentioned after every 12 words in anything related to the Dark Angels. Second, his datasheet appears in Codex Chaos Space Marines, and honestly, I think he's an auto-include. His stat line and abilities are perfect. Remember, subscribe to the channel because the next video will be a companion video to this one where we go over Cypher's tabletop stats, how to use him, all that good stuff. So if you're not a lore person, we've got some tabletop stuff for you as well. Perfect. Third, he's in the 8th edition Custodes Codex because he humiliated him in Cypher, Lord of the Fallen by John French. Fantastic book, by the way. 100% recommend. Spoilers ahead for the following. So, what can we say about Cypher? A lot, and that's exactly what I plan to do. So, let's start with the big one. Theories about who he actually is. So, who is Cypher? A common theory is that he is Zahariel Elzurius from the Horus Heresy Dark Angels novels, and while I like Zahariel, I can't see it. The original Lord Cypher, the one before Zahariel, feels way more in line with the Cypher we know now. He's fast with his pistols, he's enigmatic, cunning, and he's just... He seems a lot more like the Cypher that keeps popping up in M41 and M42. Anyway, Zahariel, during his point of view sections in the Heresy, sides with Luther. And here's the major detail. Lord Cypher isn't a person, it's a title. Lord Cypher, in the dramatis personae of the novels he is in, is cited as being the guardian of the Order's traditions. One knight from the Order of Caliban would embody the ideals of the Order and become its voice, Lord Cypher. When the Order was folded into the First Legion, the Dark Angels, the title carried over. Now, during Luther's rebellion, things get a little bit messy. Zahariel apparently kills this mysterious Lord Cypher, but before he does, he recognises him, as damning as it is to see in Angels of Caliban by Gav Thorpe. It does, to me, outline how Zahariel's Cypher and the Lord Cypher that preceded him are different people. I'm still of the opinion that the Lord Cypher we saw in Descent of Angels, Fallen Angels, and Angels of Caliban is the Cypher we've come to know and love in the current 40k setting. And as a personal bias, I'm not a big fan of this, but given how Caliban is extremely warp-tainted, it makes a lot of sense. This Lord Cypher is firmly against Chaos, as are the Watchers in the Dark. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that the Watchers in the Dark likely had a hand in this Lord Cypher's survival. They certainly held no compunction with interfering with the Lion, carrying his body away after his fated deal with Luther. But back to Cypher. We're going to look at a few sources, namely Cypher's recent appearances. To my mind, Cypher as we know him would have no issues with using his connection to the warp if he was Zahariel. As it stands, he seems to be someone who's bared the brunt of a warp-based attack and has fortified himself against it. This becomes a lot more evident in Lord of the Fallen. So, who is Cypher as he stands in the year of our Emperor M41? More importantly, what the hell is he doing? So, Guilliman finds himself captured at the hands of Kairos Fateweaver and imprisoned within a Blackstone fortress. With a force of Harlequins and his fallen angels, Cypher assaults the Blackstone fortress and comes face to face with Big Bobby Rulebook himself. In exchange for freeing one of the most powerful men in the Imperium, Cypher asks simply to be taken to Terra, to the throne. Guilliman was 100% right not to trust Cypher at all, but he managed to wrangle his way into getting into Terra, which is ultimately where Guilliman and his retinue find themselves. When I first read the Gathering Storm series all those years ago, I pre-ordered them, I love them, I was elated that Cypher was included. I bought the book in the Primarch box set that had Voldus, Guilliman and Cypher in it on release day. I got to this point and I was both annoyed and ecstatic at how Cypher was handled, where Guilliman, right at the door to the Emperor's throne room, turns around and says, "Guards, arrest him," and it's shown like Cypher has the first display of emotion that anyone there had seen from him, and he was livid. So he gets whisked away, and ultimately he'll be sequestered in the dark cells beneath the Imperial Palace, a place where we find him in Lord of the Fallen. In Cypher, Lord of the Fallen, we pick up where Rise of the Primarch left off. That book gives us a look inside Cypher's head as he begins to do what he does best. And what is that? Well, he's an absolute master of manipulation. This doesn't spare the reader from his manipulations, however, because the story's told in first person from his own unreliable perspective. The blurb literally says that. So right away, you're like, okay, how much of this is even true? And that's the beauty of it. Cypher might be lying to us the entire time, but he has a habit of claiming something is a lie only to double back later on down the line and claim he never actually told a lie. He often says one should not ask for truths but secrets, and the choice to have this novel be from his first person perspective raises a question that is answered right at the end of the book. And it makes a lot of sense why the book constantly seems to shift from half-truths, contradictions, obvious allusions to between-the-lines statements, and just flat out breaking the fourth wall, Deadpool style. So this isn't like how Dan Abnett wrote Eisenhorn, where the whole series is like a grim first-person account of Eisenhorn's own thoughts and his adventures, written from that perspective to help elevate the reader into the position of Gregor Eisenhorn. Instead, Lord of the Fallen is almost like Cypher knows, and he's addressing his observers and the reader quite often. This works on a lot of levels, and this video is more of a character study on Cypher than a book review, but given this is the only point of view book we have belonging to Cypher, it's an absolute goldmine of information, even if half of it might turn out to be bollocks. Adding to the enigma of Cypher's own loyalties, we'll look at the Lexicanum. Quick note, I know just reading off the wiki is lazy, but it's a good place, especially when the entries have citations you can follow back. Now, I'm a big lad. I went to university. I know how to cite my sources. Half the sources for this video were outside of my personal collection of Dark Angels novels, comes from checking the sources on the Lexicanum, because I don't play Custodes, but I know it was in the 8th edition Codex, and I managed to verify that citation by asking a friend who has the 8th edition Custodes Codex, and he sent me a picture of it, and it was gravy. It was lovely. So if I can't verify it, I'll mention it in a future video when we talk about lore, obviously. But if I can't verify it in its entirety, it doesn't get added in. Simple as, right? But I am lucky enough to have in my vault of Dark Angels books Cypher's old Dataslate. It's a humble little ebook that features Cypher's old model, the metal mini, and on the cover it adds a lot of his escapades. I won't read the full list verbatim, but I'll pick a few and leave the most interesting for last. So he aided Cadian soldiers on Monarch Prime and led them against the cultists. He has worked with the Black Legion to steal STC documents on Voss Prime. He killed an Orc war boss who killed Grandmaster Aloken during the Red Stars campaign and prevented Dark Angels artifacts from being looted by the Orcs. He instigated the Septius 7 uprising. He's given Belial the slip on 3 separate occasions, likely the reason why Belial keeps bouncing between the Grandmaster of the Deathwing and the leader of the Third Company every other time he's featured in a piece of media related to the Dark Angels. And best for last, in the run of books starting from The Purging of Cadillus through Angels of Darkness, then the Unforgiven trilogy, which is Ravenwing, Master of Sanctity, and Unforgiven, absolute goated 5-book series that if anyone wants to get into the Dark Angels, I would 100% recommend those 5 books. Cypher orchestrates a lot of events from Angels of Darkness onwards, where he triggers a virus bomb on Persona 4, which interrogator Chaplain Boreas seals within the Dark Angels Fortress Monastery on the planet to prevent the planet's destruction, effectively killing him and the Dark Angels on board. Then he nicks the Gene Seed out of the Dark Angels Fortress Monastery and leads them all on a wild goose chase, which culminates in his capture, revealing that Astalan, the notorious fallen angel and one of the original chapter masters, I think he was a Terran from like the original First Legion who came to Caliban and helped sort all that good business to make the First Legion the Dark Angels from the Calibanites. And it was revealed that Astalan was working with Typhon to enhance the heretic Astartes, only to disappear in the same warp rift that apparently destroyed Caliban. He's an enigma and a true agent of chaos, and I don't mean agent of chaos like he draws on his face and worships Slanesh, but like his ability says, he's an agent of discord. The way, like, whenever he appears, he's a portent of doom or salvation. The scales never seem to know which way they tip until they eventually do. The Dark Angels hunt him because he's the apex of their shame. The Assassinorum see him as a rogue space marine, a variable to be resolved. The Inquisition see him as a nuisance. Now, the Custodes view him as someone who was within spitting distance of the Emperor, and as such, they see him as a credible, serious threat, but we'll get to that. If Cypher has 1 million fans, I'm one of them. In Lord of the Fallen, we see what finally happened when Cypher escaped the Black Cells on Terra. Now, given that whole book's from his perspective, it's impossible to tell what's real, but some parts line up really well with other sources in ways that we can't dismiss. For example, in the 8th edition Custodes Codex, there's a passage, Silent Crossing. It's about page 33, 34 for all my Custodes Codex enjoyers, right? It basically confirms parts of his escape, as well as the passage from Rise of the Primarch, where he basically says he was sent to the Dark Cells, and then, like, 4 hours later, he was gone. So, it outlines Shield Captain Dareth's hunt for Cypher, as well as him being stalked by a Dark Angel's cruiser as they cross the Cicatrix Maledictum. It's not said to be a Dark Angel's cruiser that's following him, but it's a black cruiser with its insignia covered. It's to do with Cypher, it's the bloody Dark Angels, right? So maybe, just maybe, his escape in Lord of the Fallen is a lot more true than you'd think. So, as a little bit of background, it's not just him on his own. He has a big squad of Fallen with him. He has about 10 or 11 or 12, but obviously they all die because the Fallen are no longer in the the Chaos Space Marines Codex. They used to be an elite's choice back in 7th, I think. That was the biggest heartbreak for me when they got Legends out. So we've got Askar, Corlael, and Bacariel as like the three main standout characters of Cypher's little squad of Fallen, but there's about a dozen in total. Some trust him, some despise him, others are just completely broken. For example, Bacariel, he's a Psyker, and at this moment in the story, the Eye of Terror is turning into the ass rash of terror, right? And Psykers across the mind are collectively losing their shit. We're past the 30-second mark, so I'm allowed to swear. We're past the watershed moment. It's literally chaos, but it's not as chaotic as Cypher's outline of how he escaped. He tells a brief story about Helot UT-413, who died making a device that switches electrode charge between a single input and two outputs. Now, as a techie, that kind of makes sense to me. But, you know, the device was perfectly functional on the surface, but it failed when Mordakai, or Mordachi, I can't really remember, no, I don't know how to pronounce that bloke's name, and his squad of Deathwing Dark Angels makes entry to Terra. They destroy a power generator, which causes a chain reaction, which powers down the entire upper levels of the Dark Cells. That's funny as fuck. All right, I've danced around it enough. We got to talk about the sword. So the sword's been a mystery for decades. Everyone's got a theory. Personally, I think it's the same sword Guilliman snapped over his knee in Angels of Caliban. After the Lion's secrecy and brutish behaviour, his dishonourable conduct, and his just general being a dick reached a boiling point during his fight with Conrad Kurz on Macragge. It links neatly because it's called the Lion Sword, and it's visibly broken by Guilliman. And if you read a book, and I've left the sources and the citations down below, like for the books, if you want to just like flick through them and find the bits and confirm yourself, or if you want to read them, or if you've already read them and you want to, reread them back. But Lion L. Johnson is described as like being hurt, upset, angry. He's regretful, but he's internalizing it as he's banished from Imperium Secundus. In The Unforgiven by Gav Thorpe, and this is all connected to make one point, Interrogator Chaplain Asmodai, who, in my personal, let's keep this between us, right? In my personal opinion, he's a bit overrated as a character, because in Master of Sanctity, we actually follow the Dark Angel's actual lead chaplain, not Asmodai. People think Asmodai is like the leader of the chaplains, but no, it's a bloke called Saffron, and he's actually a lot more interesting than Mr. Angry Asmodai over there, but I digress. So Asmodai expresses a wish to break the Fallen's blade over his knee as the final stroke, because obviously Cypher's just been captured. Asmodai is so full of himself. He's gloating. He's being a big man. He's like, oh, hey, I've got we captured Cypher, mate. You're a Fallen. I'm going to kill you, mate. And he thinks the sword just has no importance whatsoever. He just thinks it's part of Cypher's war gear, which is a mystery until he touches the hilt. He tries to take it off him, and his exact words are he expresses a wish to break the Fallen's blade over his knee as the final stroke, the last proof that Cypher was less than nothing, and all that remained was to save his soul with the acceptance of guilt. When he touches the blade, not only did he see and feel what the Lion went through when Caliban was broken and his wound at the hands of Luthor, but he also echoed the way the actual blade was broken by Guilliman all those millennia before by snapping it over his knee. Which I think is no coincidence, right? Later in Lord of the Fallen, he talks about the sword himself. This is Cypher talking about the sword, not Asmodai. That would be absurd. So he says it could be neither, and he describes two things that the blade could be. He said it could be a double-edged blade with silvered edge, like silver lining. It could be a single-edged blade that's burnt and blackened and broken. He said if a man drops dead in a forest alone and unremembered, is he dead or alive? And he basically says, I've never drawn the sword, but no one's seen me draw it, so have I really not drawn it? Can you? I'm in the Cypher mindset right now, but still, let's try and make some sense of it, right? Because he says it could be the sword of the lion. He could wish to offer it up to the Emperor, have it be reforged and the shame cleared. He could stand before the Emperor, raise the blade point up and thrust it into the dying corpse. He said it could be the lion sword, it could be Luther's sword. And basically, boiling the last minute of me rambling down, it's really, really apt, because it's Cypher just acknowledging that the Dark Angels have as one of their core themes the idea of duality. For so long, the Dark Angels have been hunting the Fallen, keeping secrets from the Imperium, stewing in their shame and dishonour, while the Fallen are just as fractured as the Legion as a whole. Some are loyal but renegade, some might be serving as Black Shields in the Death Watch, others are renegade warbands, others are demon-worshipping Chaos Astartes. Cypher's statement about the sword, as much of a non-answer that it is to me saying that's a Dark Angels thing. So yeah, my money's on it being the broken lion sword, just from my own perspective. It all neatly lines up. Now, what drives Cypher? In Lord of the Fallen, the sword is the key. While imprisoned in the Black Cells, it's taken from him and handed to the Officio Assassinorum for gatekeeping. No, safekeeping, Jackal, stay on topic. Somehow, with direct contact, Cypher manipulates everyone involved. Warden Hekaron, Doomscryer, Ansia, the Assassinorum, even the Deathwing veterans, all playing them off one another. And as another side note, right, unlike most psychers in Black Library stories, Ansia is remarkably competent and survives her role in the plot, which is refreshing. So is Cypher loyal to the Emperor, to the Lion, to Chaos, or just to himself? Well, in the climax of Lord of the Fallen, he comes face to face with Warden Hekaron, and Hekaron is one of the custodians. He's one of the 10,000. And Hekaron is standing between Cypher and the throne room. The throne room, even, Jackal, come on, mate, it's been a long recording session, I know. I will pass here, I say. You are bound to try and stop me. One will live. That is the only answer that matters. What can be said that could change anything? Not yet, says Hekaron. If that is not evidence of Cypher's whole loyalties, that a custodian who is, in context, not right in the head, because he's been in a couple of scraps. I'm leaving a lot of details out so I don't spoil it, but he's just showed up. Cypher thinks he's dead. He's not dead. He's there in front of him, blocking the way. And he just goes, not yet, sunshine. And then Cypher takes that and he walks off. I don't think he's loyal or treacherous. I think he's exactly what he needs to be. As much of a non-answer as that is. But yeah, we're reaching the end of the video now. He's one of the most intriguing characters in the entire 40k setting. The mystery is the point. I don't buy the theories that he's Corswain or Zahariel or he's Alfarius or Omegon or whatever, but I won't tell you what to think. If he's Zahariel to you, then power to you. If you think he's Corswain, righteous. Personally, for me, Cypher is Cypher, and honestly, that's enough. Thank you for watching Uplifting Primer. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It really helps. I could talk about Cypher for hours, and there's a couple of friends of the channel, Euroblob and my good mate Steel, who have suffered as I've been writing this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. I've still got a lot in the gas tank to talk about Cypher. There's a companion video for all my wargamers that's coming in the next few days. A deep dive into Cypher's data sheet, his stats, his abilities, ideas on how to actually use them in a game. The video will be linked on screen down in the description as soon as it's available, and I'll leave you with the words of Warden Hekaron. You've come this far. What is one more step?